Hang on. Yep. Okay, there we are.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 9th, 2025 meeting of the Portsmouth School Board. Patty, can we have the roll call, please?
Genevieve Beckstead Muskie,
Here.
Tish Campbell, Nancy Clayberg,
Here.
Dick Clues, Brian French,
Here.
Lee Hudson, Byron Maddow,
Here.
Carrie Nolte, here, Lisa Rappaport,
Here.
Eric Moore,
Here.
Nathan Delaney.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Patty. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Announcements, recognitions.
Just
Back.
a couple of quick things. Just in terms of announcements, we are rolling into open house season for parents, and so the remaining open houses that we have coming up are the high school on the 11th, Little Harbor on the 16th, the middle school on the 18th, and New Franklin School on the 25th. More information is available on each school's website about those opportunities, and I'm sure folks have also been communicated with through newsletters, but open houses are with us. And the other was just a recognition. Really excited earlier this week. Tom Kozakowski, our athletic director, who most of you know is just Cause, let me know that on Monday, the NHIAA held one of their annual meetings, and at that, the high school was recognized with two different recognitions. The first is a recognition from the National Federation of High Schools. It was presented to the PHS Athletics Department to the high school for the Award of Excellence for exemplary, I can't talk tonight, display of sportsmanship, ethics, and integrity. Out of 90 schools in New Hampshire, about 15 received the award, and it's the first time in the 20 years Cause has been connected with the department that we accomplished that here in Portsmouth. And then on the same day, later in that during that meeting, the NHIAA also announced its sportsmanship awards for schools across the state. These are awards that are recognized by the votes of each different athletic program votes for other programs in the state that have demonstrated excellent sportsmanship. And Portsmouth was named the Division I runner-up for the 24-25 year. And so we're super excited about that because we spent a lot of time talking with coaches, with parents and with players around the idea that when our students go out into other communities, they are ambassadors for the school district, they are ambassadors for Portsmouth. I know I've had conversations with students where, it's like you might go to an away game someplace and the people at that away game are going to draw conclusions about what are the people of Portsmouth like based on the way in which you conduct yourself with a shirt with our logo on it. And to have two different organizations, say that our kids are classy kids, and that our program is a classy program and does things the right way, is excellent. And so we win state championships. I get very excited about the state championships, but I would say I'm as excited for our program to be recognized in this way. So kudos to the AD, the coaching staff, the student athletes, and the parents connected with them to make, in terms of making this all possible.
Thank you, Zach. Anyone else have an announcement? Well, I'd like to announce that Nathan, our student rep, just came back from his soccer game. Portsmouth High School was successful in beating Spalding. 4-0.
Correct, Nancy.
4-0. So
4-0 Spalding.
Girls soccer beat Spalding too, 6-0.
Okay.
Always going to have a leg up, girls soccer, right?
4-0.
I follow on Instagram, that's all.
Congratulations. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, thank you, everyone. We will move on to the consent agenda. I think we can probably take these in a block. The minutes of the August 12th, 2025 non-public, August 12th, 2025 public, August 14th, 2025 public minutes, August 19th, 2025 public minutes, September 2nd, 2025 public minutes. Do we have a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Any discussion? Yes,
Pip's,
Lisa.
oh, say, sorry.
No, I was going to say call on Pip.
Yeah, Pip's on Zoom, and Pip has her hand up.
Oh, okay, Pip.
Thank you. I was going to request that we separate the September 2nd minutes,
Okay.
but I don't know if it's too late to do that now.
No, I think we can do that. Does everyone agree that we can separate the September 2nd minutes?
I can do a
All in
friendly
favor of-
amendment.
Yeah, friendly amendment.
I-
Everybody in
I
favor
accept
of
it.
that? Okay. You accept it as the first? You accept
good.
it as the second? Okay. All right, we will take
Thank
out.
you. And then I do have some discussion when that comes up.
Okay, why don't you continue?
Okay. On, I believe it's section 5, there was a vote and my name was listed as a no vote, but in fact I voted yes on that motion.
What?
So I just wanted that
What
corrected.
set of minutes are you referring to?
Oh,
September
sorry, the
2nd.
September
Oh,
2nd.
September 2nd. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And
Okay, we can make that change, correct?
so it's so Pip, just to be clear, so it's section 5 around the motion to join the police commission? Is that the?
Yes,
And I
exactly.
think it,
Yeah.
and I agree, and I think it was actually Nancy, Brian, Byron, and Lisa who voted no on that, if I were correct.
I voted no,
Yeah,
That's how I remember it as well.
yeah.
So the switch out would be Nancy for Pip in the minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay?
As long as Nancy agrees with that.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
that sounds fine.
Thank you.
Okay. So, any other discussion on any of the minutes? Okay. All in favor?
I have to do roll call vote.
Why, is someone on Zoom?
Because Pip,
Oh,
So,
it was a late night last
and
night.
knew
with
I
city
was
council.
so tired.
Separately?
so this is for the August block because we separated out the September ones. So for the August block of minutes in the consent agenda, Genevieve Beckstead Muskie,
Yes.
Nancy Kleberg,
yes.
Pip Clues,
Abstain.
Brian French,
Yes.
Byron Matto,
Yes.
Carrie Nolte,
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Okay. 6 to
So
0.
that passed.
Yep.
And now we have to vote on the September 2nd minutes, correct?
Yep,
Okay, same first and same second, correct?
yep.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Genevieve Beckstead Muskie,
Yes.
Nancy Kleberg,
Yes.
Pip Clues,
Yes.
Brian French,
Yes.
Byron Matto,
Yes.
Carrie Nolte,
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
6 to 0, passed.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll move on to the public comment session, in person and remote. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Please come forward, give us your name, address. I think you know the drill. Name,
Yeah.
address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hey, everybody. Julie Gallett, 10 Fletcher Street. So, here tonight, because I saw on the agenda, ran into Ken. He told me that New Franklin edition is going to be on here, talking about the facilities, bringing forth all of the architect designs. And I guess what I'm mostly here to do is kind of request that you guys reach out to the city council. I know it's a difficult budget cycle. I know that there might be a little bit of pushback given the dollar amount that you're going to be requesting more money for potentially, given Ken's presentation, because I did look at the slides. But I do think that if they all were to tour the elementary schools just like you all did, they would be able to see what you see and what we see as parents going into all the different elementary schools. And I don't think there's really any other way to see that until you're physically in the space. Also, I know with the kindergarten enrollment this year that there is proof that we do need 3 elementary schools, and I think that that kind of works in our favor in a sense. I think that was really helpful. But I also want to say that once they do go and tour all the facilities and they're able to see the inside, they'll also see the outside of the schools and understand that we are working within a lot of restrictions where we are sandwiched between two highways. We don't have any noise barriers. Our outdoor facilities are subpar compared to the other schools. But on a lighter note, this summer, New Franklin was able to bring their garden back. I was part of that, put in countless hours along with my husband and a lot of other parents. And if you haven't had the opportunity, you should really go over there and check it out because it's very beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Anyone on Zoom for public comment? Patty?
Looking. Nope.
Okay.
Can I just, we don't typically respond to citizens' comments, but I just wanted to say, I have had on my list for 2 meetings to sing the praises of the PTO and particularly Julie for the work that was in the garden, because I remember the first time one of the things that we were trying to work through is where an addition might go and whether or not that was going to get in the way of the garden project. If you haven't had a chance yet to see it, definitely check out the space over at New Franklin, because I walked out on one of the first days and there were a group of teachers sitting out right by it, and it was like, wow, what a beautiful addition. And that was really that was a completely parent-driven thing. And I also know, when Julie says, I was involved in that, she's doing a nice job of understating her role and what happened. So there was a lot of work of pulling together a lot of people in the community to donate time and energy. So thank you to PTO, PTA, and thank you to Julie for all her organizational and sweat equity that went into that project. So.
Okay, thank you, Julie. We will declare the public comment session closed, and now we will go to special presentations. Patty, we'll
Yes.
hand it over to you.
Thank you. So prior to tonight's meeting, we held a welcome reception for all of our new teaching staff. Many of our current teachers and administrators joined us at the reception, and conversations were very rich. At this time, it is my distinct privilege to introduce our new professional staff. I would invite our board members to step to the front of the dais on the floor so that as I call up our new staff members, you can greet them and welcome them to our district. We have Daniel Alexander, our Director of Student Services. Meredith Gadd, an ELA teacher at the middle school. Joshua Goldberg, theater arts teacher at the middle and high schools. Emily Hartzell, a special education teacher at the high school. Kim Jenlink, school nurse at Portsmouth High School. Emma Healy, 4th grade teacher at Little Harbor. Erica Law, math teacher at Portsmouth High School. Lillian Merlot, BCBA for the district. Sam Panic, grade 5 at Dondero. Kristen Rehack, special education teacher at New Franklin. Nicole Bellabona, our interim CTE director. Nancy Rhodes, our grade 5 teacher at New Franklin. Julia Ryan, English teacher at Lister Academy. Jen Saharko, grade 4 at Dondero. Kristen Swan, world language at the high school. Blake Watkins, grade 3 at New Franklin. Todd Gurdat, STEM teacher at Portsmouth Middle School. And Ryan Kipnis, English teacher at the high school. Welcome to all of our new teachers and professional staff. And I know that everybody has got a very busy day tomorrow with our students, and so at this time, it gives me pleasure to dismiss all of our professional staff. Thank you for coming. No, it's an air horn.
There's 2 ideas here.
Thank you all. We will move on to a presentation And I'll hand it over to you, Zach.
So I'll introduce Kenny, and I'll let Kenny introduce our guests, if that's all right with you, Kenny, in a second. Just really quickly to frame the conversation for all of you, we are now in capital improvement plan time with the city. We, on the 26th, we need to submit our recommendation to the city for what we'd like to see them include in the next capital improvement plan. That's so part of the reason why we're having this conversation tonight. I will say, building off of Julie's comments, the impetus for the plan for presenting to you an option that was different than what was originally put together in 2019 as part of an existing CIP project to enhance the elementary schools, I think really was born out of the redistricting work that we did last year, parents touring, and multiple parents, but I can think of multiple Julie moments where it was, how is this, now that I'm seeing the other schools that my child is not in, why is my school not on par with those other schools? And so the conversation we had coming out of that process was, well, shouldn't our plan for renovation at least include the option of discussing what would it be if we took New Franklin School and created a school whose space in kind of per student space per student usage was similar, and that the quality of the space was similar. What would it cost for us to do? And acknowledging that the 2019 plan, while well-meaning, definitely wouldn't accomplish that. It wasn't designed to accomplish that. It wasn't designed to have a feel that's similar to like walking into Dundero School. And so we asked the team that had been involved in the original development of plans to come back together and rework on what would an option B look like, which would fit those parameters. And so what would it look like, and what do we think it would cost? And so as usual, Kenny is the shepherd of all those things. And I always rely on being able to put it in Kenny's very capable hands and work with all the people we need to work with. So I'll let him introduce the rest of the show however he wants to do it. But as always, I'm very appreciative of Kenny and all the good work Kenny does.
Thank you. Yeah, as long story short, like Zach said, this goes back beyond, really back to 2012, how we started the elementaries and then how things shifted, and there's a long parameter story, but that's what we're not here tonight. So before you tonight, we have Ingrid Nichols from Banwell Architects, and we have Mike Davey from EEI Investments. They've been part of the elementary scope since day one. Mike Davey actually back from 2012 being up through us from some other energy efficiency models and things that we started with, and then we brought in Banwell as part of the 2013-14 as we moved forward to Little Harbor. At the tail end for questions, Ms. Simons is also here from New Franklin, so we have a way to answer hopefully the questions that you'll have after the presentation, but for now I'll hand it off to Ingrid and Mike.
Thank you, Kenny. Good evening. I'm Ingrid Nichols with Banwell Architects.
Mike Davey with EEI. Ingrid's going to jump into the current program. I know there's some new faces since the last time that EEI is presented to the board, so I thought just a quick history of how we got here. So after the middle school was completed in 2010, 2011, it was at that point known that the elementary schools really hadn't been touched since 1980, and the buildings lacked ventilation, they lacked sprinkler systems, they had finishes. When I say finishes, the flooring, the millwork, the carpets, that went back to the 80s or sometimes as early as the 60s. And working with an RFQ was issued, the city selected EEI and Banwell, which are two New Hampshire-owned companies. Ingrid is the principal architect for Banwell, and they work across the state, working primarily with school districts. And they designed the major transformations at Dondero and Little Harbor. And if you had been to those buildings, pre-renovation and post, it's night and day, to the point that when the city of Manchester was looking to update their schools, they came to tour Dondero, Little Harbor. So did Newmarket. So did Stratham. So like people, it's really become a beacon for how to cost efficiently renovate new schools, because renovate existing schools. The cost of new schools has gotten extremely expensive across New England, and so restoring your existing space usually can be done at a fraction of the cost. And so we successfully completed that at Dondero and Little Harbor. New Franklin is sort of the last building that in your portfolio that needs that cosmetic and structural improvements to kind of bring it up to par. So we had a plan in 2019. Since then, the needs have changed, and so we redid it for your consideration tonight, and Ingrid led that effort.
Thank you, Mike. If you could go to the next slide, please. It's just an intro slide of us, so thank you. So just to continue on the history, Little Harbor was completed in the summer of 2016. Dondero was completed in 2019. So some of the issues when EEI comes in to do an energy upgrade, before they go and do millions of dollars of spending money on HVAC and lighting, we really like to look at what are the educational needs of the building, because you don't want to just do those millions of dollars of upgrades without doing the reconfiguration. So that's really where we came in to work with EEI and your school district schools on that. So we improved energy efficiency, we did finishes, we did acoustical improvements, we did obviously code and ADA improvements, hazmat, and worked with the local fire and building inspector to make sure your schools are safe. So this is just a quick review of Dondero. Some of the halls were dead-end corridors. There is a pointer here somewhere. Oh, whoops. Do we know which button? Hold button for pointer. Oh, here we go. So there are classrooms that were open classrooms here, so we added a corridor here. The safe entry, when you first come into schools, we had to upgrade the entry. The administration, the nurse was outdated. All the flooring was outdated. The lights were really dark and dim, etc. Have most of you been inside the school, Dondero? So you've seen the transformation, so we don't really need to go through that. So here are some just before and after photos. So you can see the lighting much better. The flooring is better. It's less stark, more secure. This is a really good one of a before classroom and an after classroom. Same amount of windows, but just the natural daylight and the lighting itself. So Little Harbor we did next, and we did both schools in 2 phases. So it worked well for doing the summer slammers. So you did the renovations during the summers. And this was an open concept school. So I don't know if any of you saw the school before we did it, but there were no walls here. The library was just open in the center here. There was no ADA access to this upper level. It was just stairs, as well as secure, no secure main entry. So again, we did code upgrades for the stairs. We put in walls, so you actually had code required egress. We enclosed the learning center, and we reconfigured the administration and that secure entry, and did upgrades to your cafeteria here, auditorium. Again, just a few photos of the dark, older spaces, and now they're light and bright, code compliant. The walls, we did add the lights, the barred lights in here, so that the interior spaces would still have daylight. And just pictures of the befores and after of the cafeteria. And this is, we kept the stair, but we added a vertical lift here for ADA access. So again, we did do this process in 2019. I won't go through it because we put the addition over the garden, which is, the garden wasn't there. But we did a code review, we did programming, we did a conceptual design, we had it priced up, and they decided to do the mechanical upgrades. So this is just the program and scope that we looked at before. We don't really need to go through this because we've redone that. This is your existing plan here. And again, like Little Harbor, the library itself is open here. There are, oh, right here, sorry. There are no corridors which are required by code for that. This is just 2019, so we can go through that. Same thing. So 2025, we met with Joanne and a bunch of her staff. We went and did a walkthrough. We looked at the different areas where we could do the additions. We interviewed stakeholders, special ed, and evaluated enrollment and the expansion needs. So we did several different options, and we'll show you the option that we've come to tonight. So just like Dondero and Little Harbor, we're adding a secure entrance. This school, because of the configuration, lack of corridors, and need for space, this is needing actual additions. We've reconfigured space for individual construction. The library is woefully undersized. The gym has absolutely no storage, so we created more storage there. Building services, the custodial is really jam-packed. There's some partitions at the corridor that are literally like 2-inch and move. So we right-sized the partitions. Just like the other schools, we're renovating the toilet rooms in place. Wheelchair lift to the stage, improve the technology. And we also are looking at solar panels and finishes and casework as separate line items for you to see. So here is the new plan. The colors, the purple or pink are renovations. So this is the new main secure entry here with a renovated admin wing here. This admin wing takes one of the classrooms here. Each grade will have 3 designated classrooms. So because you only have, because the library was open here and we right-sized it, we've brought it towards the beginning or the front of the building, which displaced a kindergarten classroom, so we're adding a kindergarten classroom here. This is the loading dock in the back of the area, so we've just expanded the custodial storage and receiving area. And then the big addition is off the back for providing classrooms for 3 classrooms per grade. And then in this block here, we've modified it. There's some toilet renovations here and here. And the blue areas here are right sizing and providing all the space needed for your special education. Now, Mike will talk about the budget.
So in general, just to give you some background, I'm going to look on the, we spent about $10 million on Dondero and Little Harbor. Those were completed by 2019, I think. And what's happened to the construction industry since then is there's been pretty significant inflationary pressure. So it almost costs $15 million now what would have cost $10 million pre-pandemic. So there has been a rise in price. But what we did is we focused on creating a plan that would bring New Franklin up to par with the other 2 elementary schools, give some flexibility for the current space usage, and provide the ability to grow into the current needs of the district. The overall budget, sorry, I'm trying to grab that. Yeah, here we go. The overall budget is about $12.2 million. We've priced in, we're assuming that this would be done over phases, and we've priced in some estimates for inflation at like 3 to 5%. So what Ingrid and I can tell you is that since I've been in the industry in New Hampshire since 2001, a 3 to 5% inflation was conservative, and usually if you passed a project in 2005 and you carried 3% and you did it in 2006 or 2007, you were fine. 2021, 2022, 2023, each year saw 20% inflation. So there's that. If that happens again, pandemics, world wars, that does increase it. But I think these are going. We're hoping that we're back to normal levels of construction inflation, and I think between 24 and 25, we've seen kind of it leveling off. So with pending your approval and city council approval, if this was broken into phases, the first phase that we would recommend would be in 2026. It would include the design for the majority of the building so that we could go to planning board, get the permits for the future phases. It would include additions for the kindergarten and the vestibule to improve the secure entrance, and then provide flex space for future phases, meaning we'd have new classrooms, the kindergarten classrooms. And so that would come in at about 2.8 million. And my understanding is there's already approximately $3 million allocated for a potential undefined project at New Franklin. And so that would be in budget. It could be started this summer at 2.8. The remaining phases would be done pending your and city council approval. In 2027, we would focus on the larger addition, which is the 3rd and 4th grade addition. We'd complete the remaining roofing. We'd renovate the 5th grade wing. The 5th grade wing right now, the walls don't go to deck, so they have sort of, if you think of, the walls are similar to mobile off, or what do you call it? Partitions that you have, if you go into an office and you have 4-foot cubicles, that's kind of how the walls in part of New Franklin are framed. They're partial walls. The problem with that, they don't go to the deck. So if there was ever a fire in a classroom, which has actually happened before, I think one of the renovations, I have all the old prints of New Franklin, and one of the renovations there actually was triggered by a fire event. And so if there was a fire in the classrooms, the smoke from that fire would transfer over into the egress corridor. So the wall needs, by current code, needs to go to deck to create a smoke barrier between the classrooms and the egress corridor. So that doesn't exist in New Franklin. The building inspector has told us when you renovate this, you need to bring that up to code. So the potential 2027 project would include bringing those walls up to code, improving the lighting, and renovating the bathrooms, replacing many of the windows, and then in 2028, we would complete the renovations to the library, gym, and admin. We would do casework and remaining window replacements, and do new millwork for the classrooms. So if you've toured Little Harbor and Dondero, all those classrooms have been replaced with new millwork. What we mean by that are there's benches and cubbies for the kids to put their belongings. There's storage shelves for the teachers. And so assuming the inflation between now and 28 is in that 3 to 5% historic range, this could all be completed for 12.3 million, rounding up. And so that what we're seeking today is sort of to get advice from the school board and to consider, do we want to move forward with this phase 1 in 26, which would be the kindergarten addition and the security improvements in the library and gym roofs. And I guess any questions, comments?
Do you want to comment?
Well, well, I think I'll let people start asking their questions, but I think you get the gist of what we asked folks to do. And as I said before, we are, September 26th is the date that we need to submit to the city any changes to our proposed capital improvement plan as part of their process.
Okay.
Can I ask, what is the amount that we now have in the CIP?
So there's two different connected with, so we have a elementary schools upgrade project that is part of the existing CIP. There's $3 million in FY26, and then we've got $2.5 million in FY29 at the moment. So this would, so effectively a little less than half of less than half of what we're talking about in terms of this particular renovation.
Byron?
Maybe I'll start with the 29 money.
Yeah.
Is the thought that you would pull the 29 money for phase 2? If like in a world where this was something that was going forward, is that the general thought in terms of like grouping that amount of money with what we have for next year?
So, well, Kenny, do you want to talk about kind of how you manage multiple years worth of CIP projects and how they come together and what it looks like?
With CIP, so we have multiple pages in the CIP. We have the elementary renovation piece, which is what we're talking about tonight, the $3 million, 2.5. We also have another slide coming out for projecting the 2030 of the CTE/high school renovation things as well into that world there. We also have another section of slides that we do $1 million every 3 years of small miscellaneous projects such as roofs or pavings or, whatever where it's bigger than our normal operating costs, what we have to do. So we're trying to juggle the three. I think what we're looking for tonight is just some clearer guidance is how do we bring that in closer? Because we know if we jump out farther and farther, this can't turn into a secure 8-year renovation project. We know we have to bring it in tighter to 3 to 4 years. It might be a gap year, and then we'll have to refigure on what's the priority piece. Ultimately, in order to get into Joanne's core piece of staff who's working at our corners or a vestibule exit or into a closet, is that last chunk where we have to build those rooms in order to then move the library over and build that center core. So that's kind of a bigger piece right there.
I wonder if it's, and I apologize. I wonder, before we get into questions, if we give Joanne an opportunity to talk about the involvement of staff in what you just saw, and kind of what this kind of staff and her perception of this potential project is. Sorry about that, Byron. I forgot.
No,
that
you're
Joanne
good.
is here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Carrie.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So I know many of you have been in the building, especially as we went through the redistricting conversation and had an opportunity to see the charm that New Franklin has in comparison to the other two elementary schools. I know I have some current and former parents here on the dais this evening who can attest to the fact that we make magic happen in challenging spaces. And that includes Seacoast Mental Health in a supply closet. That includes ESOL within a former, another former supply closet off the gym. It includes people working in hallways and vestibules because space, the building was not designed originally to support the type of education that we now provide in 2025. So I was in the building in 2019 when those first kind of drawings that they discussed, that Ingrid discussed, were pulled together. But I will say this go round, what we were able to do is work really closely with Ingrid to provide our voice in that conversation and to talk about what our needs are. Back in 2019, we certainly talked about our needs being safety, air quality, and space. And at that time, the priority actually was around air quality within our building. And so we were very lucky to be supported by the city and to have air conditioning put in. We're a flat roof building, as been described, tucked between the highway, a parking lot, the bypass, and we'd get really hot. So that was a wonderful addition to our building, but it didn't address the other two major issues, security and space. Ingrid came in to meet with us multiple times, I will say, in person and over Zoom, to talk to classroom teachers, our special education coordinator, with my administrative assistant, my custodian, and anyone who knows Ed O'Connell knows that he is the senior staff member at New Franklin and has the history and perspective and knows that building backwards, forwards, inside and out. And she listened, and she drew, and she reconfigured, and she really created a plan that meets the needs of New Franklin in terms of supporting our students and supporting our staff and providing them in a secure environment where learning will flourish. And so we were really excited to see the plans. We know what a challenge this is. It seems that New Franklin falls upon these phases as a part of our journey. We are this hidden gem. We are that school that people don't even realize at times that we're there. And here we are, we're the third school to go through a major renovation. So our fingers are crossed that we're able to work with the city council, have them tour the buildings. I think Julie, who I'm going to just stop right here and just say, Julie Gallant is a force to be reckoned with. So my community around New Franklin, if you have a child or not, please come by, visit the incredible garden space that she spearheaded the effort. It was an idea, a fledgling idea, where she said, again, there are beautiful gardens in the other buildings. Our garden had been, in the New Franklin way, had been overrun by a prehistoric weed. And so she said, this is not acceptable. And she created a committee of parents, of community businesses who donated time, money, food. This woman does not know how to hear the word no. And I just want to publicly acknowledge that, because she has created a space that will last for years and years to come. It's beautiful. So that's an aside. But just kind of going on, we realize that we've come into a space where, oh no, this is a challenging economic time, and we understand that. But what I do also want to emphasize is we want to create a place that our children can flourish in. And I really invite the city council, as Julie had said, to come and tour and visit and see our space and see where magic happens, but also see, I say that in a very nice way, but I also say that we are challenged in spaces and challenged in kind of our setup. The library we described is an active hallway. And so while we're teaching, while Tammy Truex and Sarah Jones are teaching, classes are walking through, because that's how third and fourth grade make their way to their portion of the building. There are a lot of challenges to our space, so we know that it's time to revisit the design, and we're excited about the possibility of where we could go.
Thank you,
Thanks, Joanne.
Byron, did you finish? And then we'll do Carrie and then Brian.
I have a bunch of okay. So maybe just some clarifying on some of the phasing. So if I'm understanding this correctly, it looks like the first year, which would be associated with sort of that 3 that's already earmarked, is net new space in the form of a kindergarten area and a storage receiving area. Is that accurate? Is that the purple that's in year one?
Purple.
And that's net new space to the building. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. And then the small purple box is around reception area and making sure that safety is addressed in terms of the vestibule.
Yeah, we've had the kind of airlock
Airlock,
type of
okay.
approach. Yeah.
And then it looks like gym roof and library roof are just existing maintenance that is like, it's probably screaming for help, I imagine.
Well, I mean, the roofs are, just citywide are,
Yeah.
we're always a constant
Okay.
change and upgrade.
Okay. And then year 2 is where you get net new space of a block of 4 classrooms. Is that it? And then is that new space, which is the 3rd grade sort of rectangular classroom?
The second phase of the third floor addition is the classrooms to the right
The right.
that go out towards the backside playground.
Yeah. Oh, but okay, but that 3rd grade classroom is existing space, but that's, I understand. Okay. And so we don't actually move, we don't do the library until year 3.
Correct.
And that is enabled by the movement of kindergarten in year 1, right? Okay, I understand. Like, I'll stop there in my questions, but I for now. But I do want to say, I completely agree in terms of the state of, comparatively. I mean, even without comparatively, I think New Franklin is certainly in need of updates in many areas, and so. I agree also with Joanne that Julie is a force, and so I'm glad that she's part of this as well. So I think there's a lot here, so I think I'll stop there. But again, very much my general support of, New Franklin is in need in terms of updates. Yeah.
Thank you, Byron. I think Carrie's next, and then Brian.
I'm trying to count from the number of rooms. Can you summarize? So so 3 classrooms go away for the library. We add 5. Well, I don't know. How many classrooms do we have? How many classrooms will we have?
So we are really net +1 on the classroom. So
Okay.
if you look where the security entrance is, we're actually taking a classroom away there for
Yes.
with the new administration area.
Yes.
And we're taking 3 classrooms away when we shift the library.
And where music is noted on the,
So music is in the up right-hand
that's
corner.
case
which would-
management
Yeah,
now.
so
and then-
when we look at shifting that, the back addition for the classrooms will be where the 3rd grade and 4th grade come in. We added this extra kindergarten class that allows them to leave the 3 classrooms together as a program through the building versus leaving 1 kindergarten class on the other side or someplace else in the building. So we tried to create it where you can have pods of 3, depending on each grade, we know they're going to fluctuate from 3 to 4, but how do we try to keep them as that core 3 request?
And I think one of the things that's important in terms of, you might hear net 1 classroom and be like, well, that doesn't feel like a lot but I think a lot of what's really important is what Joanne spoke to, is that New Franklin was not designed to deliver education the way that we now deliver education, and the way in which we provide students services, so for really a lot of the movement is around eventually creating, if you think about when we toured Dondero, one of the things that I thought was really objectively different was being in New Franklin and showing people book closets where students were getting intervention, different types of intervention, and then going to Dondero where we had very clearly well-designed spaces for those types of interventions, well-lit, natural light, privacy, all those types of things.
I just want to clarify for people at home and also for the school board. When we talk about administrative space, I don't want anyone to think that I'm going to be living in the lap of luxury and that we're moving walls and things. But what we are talking about is right now my special education meetings with parents and staffings and things of that nature have to take place on Friday when my art teacher is not in the building. And that is so they can use the art room. There's no dedicated meeting space. I have 2 chairs. If any of you have been into my office in terms of a meeting space, there isn't, when we talk administrative, there's going to be a piece where this special education coordinator will be beside a nice little meeting space so she can hold her meetings. If you have seen Karen Utgard, our school nurse's office, you'll notice that that is a very, very small space with one bed that her husband made for her. That is in her space. And so what's going to happen is there'll be two, and hopefully her husband won't have to make that bed, but and a larger bathroom for her, and also a secure place for her medications, which right now is just something that hangs on the wall. So when we talk about administrative spaces, that's kind of the reconfiguration. It will also give the administrative assistant, Kim Kumpf right now, will have that space through that secure area where she can see people, have them come in. That also includes where teacher mailboxes will be and copy machines. So I just want to clarify, like I think sometimes, and especially recently, there's been lots of conversation around administrative pieces tied to the district. But when we're talking, I think in terms of building space and administrative space is really kind of just a buzz of activity. And I'll still have like 2 chairs. Like that's what I said. I'll be small and the rest of them will be larger spaces for parents to come in and teachers to have a place to gather.
Thank you, Joanne. Brian, Pip.
So I have a couple of thoughts on all of this. Part of what I think that needs to really be, is the messaging around this to the council, is that this is a net one. Because I think a lot of what's, we're in a district that's losing students. We're also in a district that we just redistrict out of there. And so a lot of concern when you put in line items that say +4, new 4th grade and new kindergarten, it doesn't actually paint the actual picture of what you're doing. So I think that's really important to the city council. And I know we're using euphemisms here that say challenging and stuff like that, but it really is unacceptable. And I think the council needs to hear that too, and TOR, because I don't want to sugarcoat it, because I think if we do that, we're doing a disservice a little bit, especially when we talk about the space being so crammed that you're doing things in closets, and what you're really trying to do is actually make the spaces bigger for what's there and bring it up to code and a lot of other things. So I think it's really important that if this presentation is looked at again, just the way the line items are described are a little bit different, because I think that will help their understanding of what we're trying to accomplish here, and also just the vast difference between the 2 other schools and this school. And this is really unacceptable for Portsmouth, in general. So I don't want to sound too negative, but I'm just trying to say that, I think this is really, really important to do this project. But I think we need to, really help the community and the city council understand why this is really important. So.
And I think, and I'll make sure, Carrie's been waiting for a bit. But I think the most powerful way to do that is walking those spaces.
Yep, for sure.
Because when you walk those spaces, there's no getting around. These are objectively different educational spaces for kids. And if you live in one part of town, you have one experience, and if you live in a different part of town, you have a completely different experience. And there's no getting around. This is objectively different.
Yep.
And I think that's what people need to see. And I think once they understand that, I have faith in the community that this would be something they can get behind.
Thank you. I think we had Pip.
Yeah, actually, I was going to echo the same sentiment that both Byron and Brian just shared, which is I think that I wasn't aware of the extent of the discrepancy between the buildings until I did the recent walkthrough during the redistricting process. And frankly, I was horrified at how different they were. And I think in keeping with our intent, our quest for equity across the elementaries, but also in terms of, we've been working for years on sort of unifying the experience academically, and so it only makes sense that we would do that environmentally as well. So I think I'm thrilled that this has progressed as much as it has. And I'm also glad to hear about all the input that the teachers and administrators had, because I know that the earlier plan wasn't quite feeling like it was going to be right. So I appreciate that we've updated it, and I share your sentiment, Brian, that the messaging to the council will be key. And I do hope they can get in and look at the schools themselves, because I think that does make all the difference.
Thank you, Pip. I think Genevieve has something.
I in complete support. My daughter did attend New Franklin from K through 5. I know she's looking forward to her senior walkthrough in 3-4 years. And in a beautiful new school environment would be, I'm sure, a welcome visit. She did experience that reading section, those little closet spaces. For me, it was the security of the entrance. That's the one thing that always horrified me about that school, that when you enter that school right now, when that door gets opened, you have a free reign to that entire school. You're not forced into talking to the secretary or the principal, having to sign in. It's an honor system that you take a right and not a left. To get in there. So
happening under what is definitely a lot of space constraints that are inequitable compared to the other schools. I also feel like when we think about what we laid out as a strategic plan with the input from our community and people within the school district and our taxpayers, like people loud and clear said, like we care about well-being and a sense of belonging and student mental health and all of these pieces, and the space makes a huge difference in how all of those things play out. And as another sort of overarching goal down the line, to try to do a better job of accommodating more students with learning challenges and disabilities, like inside of our spaces, giving them physically more room to spread out. Like there's just so much data that shows that for a lot of kids who have the wiggles or just need more room to decompress, like having physical spaces for them to do that in a thoughtful way keeps them in the building and keeps them thriving and learning and keeps them as like a really engaged part of the community. So I think that this, beyond just making it equitable with the other 2 elementary schools in terms of the physical space, it really does a lot to advance our goals of keeping more kids in our district and having over time a more inclusive environment for everyone. So I'm definitely happy to see this proposal.
Okay, anyone else? Carrie?
I think just one, I would love to make this happen. This would be incredible, especially for all of the special ed spaces, which do seem very comparable to what was done with Don Darrow in particular. I'm just wondering, as far as if we can sort of get somehow, I don't know what I want, a side-by-side of like all the spaces for especially special ed services and case management and all that at Little Harbor and Don Darrow, and contrast with current New Franklin and then proposed New Franklin. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, we actually did some of that work when we were leading up to the redistricting conversation.
Yeah, no, totally.
We had already started taking pictures of like, here's where you are getting intervention in ELL at Don Darrow. Here's where you would be at New Franklin.
My impression with New Franklin, though, is that these services, there's so much sharing of rooms that it's less about the visual. I think the visual is great in person, and I think we should definitely coordinate with the council. I think it's just the sheer numbers of intervention spaces. Like, you know, these 2 are designed as intervention spaces. This one is a closet, and kind of what's being used now, comparing this. And then I got super into looking at these plans just because it's exciting. And I think that there's a part that should be purple that is not on the 3rd grade, like that 4th grade, 3rd grade wing. That hallway in that 3rd grade is another addition.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, coming down where, I mean, where the pink part is.
Like it should go all the way to the ESOL.
Meaning this one here?
I can't.
Where the pop out is in the back, that Yeah, there's a little bit more purple
Is
as you're
that
popping out back
too much purple?
before.
Not enough purple? Or not there? I think this is existing space, and this is not new, but that shows it as purple, and I think
That's already there. Okay.
yeah,
I think this one is right.
I think that's right. So this is
The
not
bump back where the back of the gym, we're actually going to bump that hallway, bump out a storage area right there. So that's why the bump's the hallway for the, where the library is. So actually, we're going to shift that hallway over. And so it'll be kind of like a zigzag as you walk down, because right now it's a straight shot down to
Is
the
it
existing.
more narrow or?
No, it'll be same size.
I see. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that's just like the, definitely has had many IEP meeting in the art room or the suite or in the hallway to start and then in one of those places. So I think definitely having the conference is critical, and then noticing just way more case management space. Not that that could be full team IEP meetings, but it's a little more than there is now. So I think, yeah, I think just the comparison for advocacy. I don't have any, whatever we need to help advocate for this.
Yeah, maybe a massage chair in the admin.
And I do appreciate that Nurse Karen's office is larger than Joanne's, just for context. She's being very giving.
Yeah, so I mean, our goal is to model it. We did the other schools, is turn to New Franklin the same way. So the nurses area will grow, a bigger bathroom, shower, have a couple stalls. Classrooms are all updated. Cabinetry, storage units. We've been going to a coat hook system with a bench. Just kind of helps alleviate a lot of the clutter when we look at certain things versus the cubbies or how the cubbies are now. Cabinetry, carpet, sinks, ceilings. We're actually looking to update all the lighting again. Yes, we did it in 2012, but it's LED, and life expectancy for LED is not long-term. We're just about out of our life. So when we look at New Franklin, it's going to be pretty much kind of a three-phase full gut. Back to concrete and steel and start over.
And will you ensure to preserve the nailed up posters on the gym walls of basketball players from the 80s?
You mean the banners and things? Unfortunately, a lot of that paneling thing's all going to come down.
There's also just some paper posters that are
we'll
nailed
try to cut that out
in.
for you and kind of save that
Okay.
off the sides. But
Show
it'll be,
up at my doorstep.
Yes. But it also gets the rubberized gym floors such as Dondero and Little Harbor, and we're looking at how do we spruce that, how do we change the lighting, how do we give that more, that bling, that bounce back where it's, into the gymnasium. Because it is an internal area. They don't have any outside windows.
So, one other thing I think as we're having the conversation, we're going to get there eventually with the council. I hear the momentum of where some of you are right now. Kenny started to allude to this. I think you also need to be aware of the elementary school upgrade project is not the only project in the CIP connected to the schools. And it would not be, I would not be surprised if we're talking about this type of increase that the city would want to have conversations about some of our other projects and whether or not some of those are being pushed out and or adjusted in some form. So just, there is a, we can, there are city kind of restrictions based on some principles about how much money they put out for capital projects that somewhat limits the pie that is available for CIP. I think our chunk of that pie is not static necessarily, but I think it is realistic once we get away from this table, when we start engaging the city, that they're going to want to have some conversations about, okay, maybe we see the need. However, I don't know that we can also carry all your other things simultaneously that you're asking us to do. So I just want you to be aware that we will, depending on where you're at, we will probably be engaged in some conversations where they're going to be asking us to move around other things if we're trying to make this happen. So,
Byron.
Do you have a sense of the total square footage, like footprint of this building relative to, New Franklin's or Little Harbor's different because it has like the stack there, but in terms of like total square footage of space will this still be a smaller footprint?
Correct. It won't be much smaller. So New Franklin right now is right around 42,000 square feet. Dondero is right around 58,000, and New Little Harbor is mid 60,000 square feet.
It also has like the yeah.
Well, it
Yeah.
just says building as a whole.
Building as a
You know,
whole,
each
yeah,
room
yeah.
is kind of, so our other objective has been try to is just maintain as much as we can equal size classrooms throughout the district, somewhere between the mid 800s. There's some 7s, but we have to try to fit within the footwork or the framework that we have. We'd love to make them bigger, even though like when you get to New Franklin's 3rd grade, 5th grade room where, you know, it's like bringing geometry class all over again when you want to try to figure out the square footage.
Yeah.
Because there's so many, you know, jogs and bends. But this will increase the school, I think, by another 6,000, 5,000 square feet. Yeah, so we're going to be jumping about another 5,000 to 6,000. So we'll get up to about 47,000, 48,000 square feet.
Is so Carrie alluded to like this is sort of a net +1 on the classrooms. And I think this is going to be maybe some focus of discussion around populations in the different schools because we just go through the redistricting conversation. And so I just want so my question here is it seems like we do need to break ground beyond the kindergarten edition, right? We do need to break ground to get even to parity with existing. It's sort of no net, right?
Yes.
And so once you do that and you start like going down that path, right? I think the difference in terms of cost to just stand pat with current capacity versus get that +1 is probably marginal, right? Because you've already sort of like broken out the wall and started going down that path.
Yes.
So I just want to say that out loud because I think it is a net +1 and we have that conversation. That said, we are going to get to parity with instructional spaces, the library and all those things, you are going to have to break ground in a couple places. And once you do that, I think it's important to make sure that we get the space that we need, like looking further down the line. So I see the rationale to make sure that we get what we need with this go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Carrie, for the phase, were you calling them phases? Yeah.
Yep.
So let's say there aren't additional funds, or at least we don't know if there will be additional funds. Do you still think we should be doing the year 1 plan beginning this year without knowing if it's secured? Or when other funds would be available? Or would then the plan be completely revised?
Well, I think we're going to move forward with something at the moment. And I think once we sit down as administrators and create the final CIP proposal that we're going to submit on the 26th, then there'll be a couple meetings with planning board and then approval of the planning board or the CIP approval that's going to move forth to city council. I think then we're going to get a sense of where we're going to lie in some of the lines. My objective, my goal always been is whatever we do this next coming summer, it's not that we're going to rip it back out because we have to do the addition and we have to do something else. So we understand that we may be in scramble mode depending on how we want to rechange some of that, but in order to move forward with the plan to meet the need of the school, we have to move forward, we believe, in this type of phasing because when we get into renovating the 4 classrooms out back, that's a 6-month, 7-month renovation start. We're going to start that sometime in January so we can get that built in place so we can shift as we do into the inner classroom. So we feel that this is the best phase, the best plan to move forward. Now, if we don't get that future next year or the year after feedback from City Council of where we are in the funding, then we will sit down with Joanne and administrators and create this new $3 million plan and bring it back forth as an update of where we're going.
Thank you.
My question is a bit not totally connected to this presentation, but I wanted to make a formal request that the facilities committee convene at some point soon. Because I know that with the past renovations of the other elementaries, there was a member of the board who was involved in those conversations and planning, and I think, I don't know if Julie meant this when she mentioned it, but that she found out about this, that this was being presented. I think it would be nice if other members of the community knew that this was happening tonight, and so I see that as sort of, I see the role of the board member as sort of a liaison between the community and the board and the people doing the work on this development project. So I'd love for that committee to find a way to come together and be involved with some of these projects, including the playground work that's happening and this one.
Heard.
Thank you, we can make that happen. We'll arrange for that when we're all together, you know, the members, and we'll figure it out at time. Okay. Okay. Is any other comments? I guess, what should we do? Should we approve each of these phases?
I think if we know, I think for us, part of what we've already, I mean, even just a like straw poll for us, because this is a we don't want to go to city council as a staff and make a presentation which is going to increase overall what we're requesting, will require probably some give and take with city council if we didn't believe that you as a unit were behind that type of request. And so I think for us, I think the important thing would be, I think we already kind of have that feel, but if you wanted to you know,
Do you want a motion
re-
to
a resol-
authorize or some
or
motion?
just
to put that
almost like a
into
resolution,
CIP?
to in support of this as a concept. And then we still have a bunch of work to do that's going to be behind the scenes with the city council to the city manager's office as we get into that process. But I think a formal vote of support from the board around this as a need that you are collectively supportive of, I think is powerful in terms of putting us in a position to carry this forward.
Lisa?
So I think it's clear that everybody up here is supportive of this project. I would really like to see these clearly stated on the agendas as action items for votes, because I think we're doing a disservice to the members of the public when they don't know that there's a vote and then we're voting on plans, especially when there's a budgetary impact.
Sure.
So I feel like a resolution type of thing, if we're just trying to say, yes, we're in favor of moving forward with this, that's great.
Yeah.
But I just want to be mindful going forward when we're talking especially about a price tag of that size.
Sure.
That it's an action item on the agenda.
And it's not, I think to be fair, over time, it is not, it seems like over the years, it's not necessarily been I don't know that we've had a formal vote of the board to say, here's the proposal that I don't think we have. I think we've discussed it and then brought it to the, getting into the council process. So, and that's not to say we shouldn't. Maybe we should. I mean, that's the way to go. I think in this case, a little bit more than informing, we wanted the dipstick where we collectively felt you guys were before we would move forward with a request of this size.
No, I think a formal vote of support is fantastic.
Yep, I totally appreciate where you're coming from in terms of the public having an awareness of that.
Ahead with this to just be really as upfront as possible with what we're planning to do.
A motion to support the advocacy for the new Franklin project presented? Is that sufficient?
I think that.
Does that include phase 1, phase 2, phase 3?
As presented, yeah.
Okay. We have a second? Okay, thank you, Pip. Byron, did you have your hand up?
It was motion to.
Patty?
Motion to support the advocacy for the new Franklin project as presented.
Or maybe incorporation into the CIP?
Can we friendly amendment potentially?
No, sir.
No, sir. So it was resolved to. Sorry, say again.
Motion to support advocacy for the new Franklin project as presented.
Motion to support advocacy and continued development of the new Franklin, because I think that there's further iteration here, and I think I'd like to see. Yeah.
Is that
accepted?
Is that acceptable to the Who seconded it?
Yes.
Acceptable. Okay. All right. Can I just ask a question before we vote? What are the other projects that are in the CIP for the schools?
So I've got a list, but Kenny, do you want to talk through? I mean,
So we, every 3 years, we're up for $1 million, kind of miscellaneous. It falls, I was working on this today. It falls into athletic complex upgrades. There's high school cosmetic upgrades, roofs, paving. We're looking at brickwork, stonework at the middle school. There's a little bump out for next year. We're looking at high school gym resurfacing of the gym floors. A lot of miscellaneous construction between $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 projects. Then we jump into the 2030 CTE tag. We put that slide in there as well, knowing that's coming up for state funding as well, but try to also incorporate high school mechanical life safeties. That time, that'll put the high school at 28, 29 years old. So life expectancy is there. So as we wrap up with New Franklin, then we'll slide right up into to the high school as well, looking at that life cycle of the building. And then we have the elementary playground slide, which is approved and funded. We have phase 1 up and running, $500,000 for engineering design. We had our kickoff meeting with Wesson and Sampson 2 weeks ago. Right now we have another meeting scheduled, I think tomorrow, for a quick Zoom. Engineering wetlands design is doing site surveys starting this Friday. So that project is starting to roll forth. As we get forward and get that out the bid and all that, then we'll meet with Joanne, because she's the next phase of the elementary program, which is 2027 for their elementary playground upgrade. And then Don Darrow will wrap up in 2028.
So that money is already allocated. There's not a chance that the council could say, we're not going to do the New Franklin Playground because you want to do this huge project.
That money yet has not been bonded. No, that's still out in that
all right,
budget cycle.
we don't want the playground people at war with
Don't
the
give-
renovation people.
Yes.
But but I would say, so the plan is always a plan. And so there is, in any given year, it's a 5-year plan. And like Kenny said, I mean, the key right now, the things that we have inside of that 5 years are the elementary school renovations, which is the $5.5 million.
$5.5 million, yes.
Spread over a couple of years.
Yep.
That's all, for us, is all dedicated to New Franklin. We've got CTE that right now is sitting in FY30 because we need matching funds to match what we think would come from the state in FY30, although we think we could be FY31 the way some of the funding stuff.
So we're not too sure about that yet.
Yep. So that's happening. The playground stuff that Kenny mentioned, and then this other, we'll call it kind of bucket. It's a series of $100,000+ projects that we don't take out of the regular operating fund. Those are the chunk of things. But the plan's a plan, and it's flexible, and things move
We
around.
flex it each year. So we do have the first phase of elementary of 600,000, 500 bond, and 100,000 under general. And then we will go back to city council for bond authorization when we get up towards New Franklin, and then as we get into 2028 for Don Darrow. So those are in placeholders, have just been not bonded to move forward with yet.
Right. So it is, so to answer your question, is it possible that in non-bonded projects that the city might say, well, if you want to do this, then maybe we don't do this other thing?
Correct.
That is possible as part of the conversation.
Potential.
So, and so, you know, that's not definite, but it wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility that would happen. So.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Yes.
Just one request, if reflecting on all of the changes here, the vast majority are around adequacy of special education space in reality. Can there be just a look at foundations, grants, support, especially with the designation that it has? I don't know who would do that in the district, probably you, but just looking at if there's anything feasible that the city could match, because that would be very compelling.
Yep. I mean, we're always open when there is free money available. We will pursue free money.
Yeah, I don't think there's much I've not found and we've not gotten.
Right. Kenny's been at this for a while and is very good at knowing where those buckets are. And so I don't know, even based on the fact you're right, I think the way to characterize this is a lot of it is around providing adequate intervention space, whether that be special education or other intervention services. So you think maybe there's be more kind of grant opportunities for some of that stuff, but those are pretty common space things in modern schools. It's just that New Franklin is in many ways not a modern school. And we say that with the utmost respect for the people who operate in every day.
Okay, are we ready to vote? I guess we don't need a roll call. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes.
Great.
So
Thank
move
you.
ahead with the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Mike, Ingrid.
everyone. Appreciate the
Julie.
time. Okay, we will move on to items of information. Dr. McLaughlin.
Yep. Real quick, I mean, you had one email in connection to cell phone stuff. I will tell you that too, just in general, beyond what's gone to you, I believe, if I'm up to date, I've only received 2 emails from the community about the cell phone policy at all. And those happened they were right after we had put out, a parent square came out of my office to the community, to the school community, and I had 2 parents who responded with, and both of those, to be fair, were both like, can't we fight Concord on this? That was the opinion. I've had, as far as I know, I don't think I've had any other communication from the public to my office on that. And I think that can rolling out of emails into the opening. I think the story right now of the opening is the cell phone policy and kind of what the experience is so far in schools. The places that are really affected, the place that's really affected is the high school. The middle school is pretty much doing what it was doing before, and the high school was where the big change was going to be. I give a lot of kudos to staff and the conversations that staff were having in advance. And I think the tip of the spear of that, in some ways, since he's here, is Art was a big part of that conversation, where they had a lot of things that were part of their curriculum, where students would have that phones and having cameras that were available to students to document kind of stages and processes of different art projects they were in was a key part of some of the curricular work they were doing. And I think as a department, the fact that Art could step up and say, we got to do this for the good of what we think is going to happen instructionally, really set the tone for other departments who are like, wow, these guys are going to have to rework a lot of what they're doing instructionally, but they are saying there's value in what this is. And I think that really helped. Most staff was already on board with this anyways, but I think it helped some people who weren't sure get to the point, like, we got to be all in this together. And I can just tell you from being in the high school, the difference in what's happening in classrooms right now is totally apparent.
Can I caveat to that too?
Go. You can probably speak to this way better than I can. So you go.
Well, an experience that I had it was the first day of school, and we were all in the lunchroom, and specifically my friends, but everyone at lunch, you're on your phone, you're doing whatever. And I remember looking around going, I don't think I've ever been in a room with this many teenagers who are just present, quite simply. And you're going to have a bunch of people saying, look at the test scores at the end of the year, and I don't think that should be the focus at all. But to what you just mentioned, Zach, like, even in classes, you can feel that there's a different sort of energy and passion towards learning because you don't have the option of reaching for that. And as much as it's, in my eyes, been really tough for some of you guys down the art wing, for some of the science teachers with their lessons, I think that ultimately it's been a positive change for our school. And it's been cool to experience that shift in energy from being somewhat distracted to almost purely focused. So
there was a administrator who texted some other administrators in that morning, Steve Krasinowski, who's the director at Lister, and he said, something's happening over here. and he had like a couple of periods, and then he was like, they're socializing with each other. And it was, and everybody laughed. But I know in conversations with staff so far that staff are really pleased. And I had the opportunity last week, the Southeast superintendents, we had a meeting, and part of that meeting was meeting with regional legislators about a variety of different issues happening in Concord. And we had mixed tables, some legislators, some superintendents. And one of the things, when I said to one of them, I said, well, in a minute, I'm going to get on my soapbox about local control and HB2 and some other stuff. But I think you guys made the right move on cell phones. I think we would have struggled to have gotten there independently as a standalone district to come to that on our own. And the fact that you took it out of our hands and made this possible, now we are benefiting from something that would have been really hard for us to get to on our own. And so anyways, I just wanted to say those couple of things, but I think so far it's been positive.
Lisa.
I do want to make one sort of request for our budget conversation when we get to that. I have a kid who's in a lot of art classes, and definitely the need for cameras as a curriculum tool, I think still is, not to speak for you, but I do want to make sure that we aren't taking away the opportunity for students to photograph work in progress, to yearbook had to crowdsource for cameras because kids were no longer using their phones. And things like that are going to crop up, but I just want to make sure where there's real legitimate curriculum needs, particularly for cameras as part of instruction, that we are providing for that.
There's got to be on the digital scrap heap of the world just an untold number of
totally.
digital cameras that
We have all kinds of old technology that is reappearing.
That is true.
The
power shots are expensive.
I might have in my own household, I might have a Walkman wearer now. So yes, this is the rebirth of old technologies, coming forward in order to do this. So.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Did you want to say anything else about school opening?
No, I think just in general, I think we're feeling like we're off to a good start. We had a good, successful open. I think schools have been reasonably smooth, knock on wood. And like I said, we're about to, I said at the top, we're about to move into open house season. I think that we will continue to monitor, we definitely got, I think of all the different things that are going on, so much of it is positive right now. We're definitely keeping an eye on, we got the bigger kindergarten group than we were hoping for at Dondero. But we've got four kindergarten teachers who are covering those needs. But I would say, generally speaking, we're feeling pretty good about the start at this point. So.
Okay. Well, anything else?
Just because space is on my mind from this conversation, what's the space utilization at Dondero like now?
So, I'm trying to think about the measure of how to talk about it. I mean, right now, we're still using the modulars.
It's primary classrooms?
Classrooms are the same two teachers that we had in last year.
That's all.
So that will be a thing as we go through this facilities conversation. And as we start moving towards budget, one of the things we'll definitely be talking about is, our plan has been to move out from the modulars. Will we be in a position to do that? As a great conversation to be at the facilities committee kind of level, and then bring it back to the board.
Okay. Anything else for Zach? All right, let's move on to policy, and we'll hand it over to Pip.
Okay, thanks. I think there actually is an error in this section of the agenda because I believe we just have one for second reading, but I will get to that next. The first one, school calendar, I see, is here for its second reading, and the only substantive change since last time you saw it was a suggestion that was made in our last board meeting to move the the draft calendar presentation to earlier in the year. I believe it was moved from February to December. So I will entertain a motion to,
Motion to approve policy IC as presented in the agenda.
Second.
okay, is there any discussion on that one? Okay, then I guess we'll take a vote on it. Do you want me to take a vote? Okay, all those in favor of passing IC as presented?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that passes. The second one, eligibility for interscholastic athletics, that was proposed at a previous meeting, but it failed the first reading. So it's actually back. It requires 2 readings this time because it's being reintroduced, is my understanding. So maybe we'll.
Do you want to do it now, or?
Can we?
Point of order. Did we get a legal opinion on whether we reintroduce the policy that we have not passed?
Because it was already defeated, yeah.
Well, I would not say we got a legal opinion on it. We each did some individual research, and we were not able to come up with a conclusive answer on that. But the consensus was that they could be reintroduced separately as a new policy if significant changes were made and presented for 2 readings.
Okay.
So what we did was we took the feedback that was received at that board meeting where we did discuss it, and we incorporated that and decided to reintroduce it because it is considered a required policy.
Thank you.
But I would certainly entertain anyone's objection to it too, if you had that. Or a request for a legal opinion.
I think we discuss it now, because
Because
it's
it's on
here.
the table?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine with me. Nobody should,
This will be,
except that it is
it's
under.
old business,
Do
but
we
then
need-
it's first reading.
Do we need a motion to,
Okay,
to get to the?
Yeah, I
the
think we
goods?
should.
All right. So I'll move to approve second reading of JJIC.
First
First
reading.
First reading, sorry. It was in the second reading bucket.
Yeah, it's in the wrong.
Although you said it was wrong.
Wrong,
You knew it
because,
was
yeah.
wrong. Very good.
Okay, is there a second to approve first reading?
Second.
Oh, look at that. Oh, no, I thought we weren't going to get one. Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that?
I would like to request a legal opinion prior to second reading, if we can consult with the city attorney and just get a clear.
Just about whether it's new business or old business, or?
When we vote no on a policy on first reading and bring it back, I just would like for the precedent to be able to check with the city attorneys on that. I have no objection to moving forward first reading, but just before it comes back for second reading, it would be nice to have that
Clarity.
Yeah, I think we can do
guidance.
that.
Thank you.
Harry, did you have something?
If there's anyone else, go ahead.
Oh, well, following up on what Lisa is suggesting there, maybe a controversial take here, but I know historically we've had more direct access in these meetings to legal counsel, and I know that that had gone away. I think there's been a few different instances recently where it would have been really, really helpful to have on the dais city legal counsel. And so I don't know what the process is to begin a conversation with the city legal department again to have resources. And maybe it's not every meeting, and maybe it's strategic around specific things where we think we need it. But, best case scenario, it'd always be nice to have that option, because I think scenarios like this and other ones we've had in past meetings, I think we're a little bit grasping for things. Even the drafting of language is sort of like not in the bailiwick of a board member in some of these items. So, yeah.
And I don't know historically, you mentioned that historically that was the case, and
Yeah.
I don't know when, it hasn't been since I've been here. So what was how far back, Nancy, was there an attorney sitting
3
with
years.
Well, we always had
about
it.
COVID?
No,
Yeah, I mean,
later than COVID.
Right.
Oh, yes, and
only
It's
been
been a
a few
long
years.
time
Like
since
a year?
an attorney has attended our board meetings. We haven't had that for a very long time. But we always had access to
No,
Kathleen
we-
Dwyer,
yeah.
who
I think when I came on, Kathleen
Kathleen was here.
was attending.
Yes.
Until she left, we had.
Yeah, she was
Right,
attending
right.
meetings. She was on the,
her
she was,
assignment
she
was
sat with the
school department.
policy, she sat with the policy committee.
No, she was here at meetings.
Too.
If we needed her, she came to meetings.
Not since
If-
I've been here.
Yeah, if it was required to have
She would
her,
be
she would
occasionally,
be
but she
here.
wasn't
Yeah,
here
she
as a
wasn't here at
regular
every single
standing
meeting.
thing. And that's not to say it's wrong. I'm just saying it just hasn't happened. So since
that
I,
may have
since I've been here.
But yes, I would echo what you said about the policy meetings too. I feel like there are discussions where it would be very helpful to have legal counsel in the room with us, because we do run into legal questions, and it takes a lot of time to go back and forth, and moves us into new meetings and new meetings when we do have questions. And we have some tonight that I think particularly we could have.
And I think Lisa's suggestion is great. Get advice before the second reading, but it'd also be nice to be able to just know.
Have it on the fly, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I agree with you. And I think to the extent that sometimes the model policies are not verbatim what is said in RSA, and there's a little bit of room for interpretation on the right way to follow the laws, having an attorney to weigh on what are we absolutely required to do, what are we allowed to do if we want to go in that direction, or where do we need to maybe regroup would be beneficial.
And it would be interesting, and I'll definitely consult with the lead city attorney on this, to what extent that would be in-house counsel, or that would be, a lot of these issues would be ones that if we were dealing with them on an administrative level, would be Wadley. We'd use Wadley.
And I think I could see a process or a sort of game, or not a game, a sort of way of going where the initial ask is city legal, and they say for this specific carve out,
Farm it out. Yeah.
Wadley,
Yeah.
Okay, Carrie.
I have, I think, a new issue I didn't bring up before. So coming from a place of knowing that a lot of students may find identity in sports, in athletics, but struggle on the academic side, the thing and the eligibility seems very non-specific. Looking at the NHIAA, it looks like you are ineligible if you fail 4 classes, and that's it. But this seems to refer to like a GPA or more specific district standards for participation, but then doesn't define them. But I would be in favor of us not having anything stricter than failing 4 classes, because I think that athletics for some students who struggle are their connection point to the school, and it's really important for them to keep that connection to continue their education. So I don't love having a GPA or things like that. I just don't know what current practice is and whether it's reflected in this or not. I don't know if the high school department in the corner has insight.
We did discuss that a bit. And my understanding was that we were trying to be consistent with the NHIAA. And that the coaches and the sort of the nature of the athletic departments felt it was important to have this kind of requirement.
Carrie, you mentioned GPA. Could you just clarify what you were referring to with that?
mentions grades.
Well, it's, so if you look, so it's more like bouncing back. So it's just the NHIAA policy, which if looking at that, that's like if you fail 4 classes, you're no longer eligible, which seems pretty generous to me. I feel like that's reasonable. But then this, the 1, 2, 3 part is saying that in addition to NHIAA, they must meet the following academic requirements. But it doesn't say how you lose your academic eligibility according to the district.
And I can't speak to that specifically. I don't know. Do you know eligibility?
But it's based on the report card being issued. So that's where I'm getting.
If you progress reports can only help you with your grades in terms of athletics. But when quarter grades come out, if you're failing 1 of your classes, you are ineligible to play until progress reports of the following quarter come out. So that's just if you fail 1 class.
And are you completely ineligible? Does it remove you?
It removes you from playing in the games. I could be wrong with that, but I'm almost 100% sure.
Oh, I totally disagree with that practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we did discuss is that the practice is a little bit different, but I think what I'm interpreting from number 1, if that's where you are under academics, is that we do, this policy suggests that we do follow the NHIAA, and then the number 1 is just gives some specifics on when those changes, like when that applies, in terms of whether it extends beyond the season or whether when the student would have to stop participating, and that's the report card timing. So I don't think it's changing the eligibility. I think it's just defining when those changes take place.
I understand. So, yeah, so this is like eligibility for each marking period is determined by grades received in the previous marking period. But I think it's more up above where it says students must meet the following academic requirements below to participate, but that's in addition to the NHIAA. So then either they need to be defined or.
I see what you mean. Yeah. Or we need to eliminate that.
And I will just say that I know I would love for every high school athlete to be super high performing academically. I just have seen too many patients who are, folks that failed out of school, were great athletes, turned to addiction, struggle, and their identity part about athletics was a huge major driver of their depression, addiction. So it's more of that connection and piece that I feel like we lose students and their connection when we have really strict policies about, and it could be it could be interscholastic, it could be art, it could be music, it could be any of these things, but when we really push that, I just disagree with that. So
I guess I'll caveat off of that real quick. Just so at the high school, there's only been a handful of students over my 4 year or about to be 4 years that truly have become ineligible. I think that all teachers understand that if athletes, which most of them are open to going in early, going in after school on days where there aren't games or practices to get their grades up, there's only a handful of students that have truly become ineligible for that, 4 weeks until progress reports come out, which in the end, a season is fairly short, so that does hurt you a lot, but it's not like it takes you out from playing that sport for the whole season, or not being able to play the following season, the rest of the year. So I guess just that's my talking point to that, Carrie.
And I think we can take that under advisement for the second reading. Lisa.
I just have a question. I'm curious about the whole record keeping section. Like, what records are we keeping? And I just didn't understand what the purpose of that was.
Well, I think we did not have, one of the reasons this policy came back as well is because we did not have a policy sort of governing athletics to this degree. And so that's a new addition for us and was something that the NHSBA recommends.
I guess my take is, like, if we're going to have interscholastic sports and we agree that we're following NHIAA, that less is more when it comes to this policy. And I guess I would be in favor of just more kind of sticking to, we will follow the rules of the governing body for interscholastic athletics and try not to get so far down into the weeds. So I guess I'd be curious to know if there are specific records we need to keep, or if we don't need that, I would just remove it. Like, I don't want to remove it capriciously if it's there for some reason, but it just feels odd to me.
We can look into that. And B does say as required by law, so I would interpret that as we're not going to do more than what's required by law. But we can certainly look into it to find out if it's necessary.
Thank you.
Anybody else on that policy? Okay, we will take a vote for the first rereading of JJIC. All those in favor?
Right.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay,
Did you get all that?
passes first reading. Just not hearing.
I got that.
Yeah,
Pip was
okay, that's what I'm
against
saying.
and
Yeah.
6, yep.
Yep.
Thank
Okay.
you.
It was a pretty quiet vote, that's why I was.
I know, thank you. No, I was writing. Thank you.
Great job of presenting that policy.
I'm just gonna leave. I'm afraid I'm not feeling well. So I'm gonna go home and I'll have Brian take over and all of you, so.
All right, I hope you feel better, Nancy.
I don't know, all of a sudden I got a headache. So
Drive careful.
I'll watch you all on TV.
Feel better, Nancy.
Text you later.
Thank you.
It's gonna be under codes of conduct. I think she's okay. I don't think it's. Some schools have really strict policies.
Is you okay? All right. Why don't we? Okay, he's coming back. I was going to ask to suspend the rules and maybe work on the rest of the stuff with the policies, but
Do you want a motion to suspend the rules to move up 9D and continue with policy?
We need to do the employment.
yeah, you guys want to finish up the policies?
Oh, you want? I think that's. I mean, we're at 9 o'clock. So.
More. All right.
I'm up, okay. Oh, this is quick. This is more notification. You have the memo from me about kind of where we're at, but I want to make sure you're aware. There was some discussion, the police force has moved into the utilization of body cameras across the city. That was a CIP project. That's been a long time coming to move in that direction. As we were moving into the summer, we had some reach out from our school resource officers about the fact that they were going to start utilizing cameras as well. And that quickly got us into a discussion like, well, we need to have some more conversation about this first. And police have been unbelievably receptive. Right away, we're like, yep, no problem. Let's put this on hold. We'll have some conversation. They have an existing operating procedure document that they're looking at. We're talking about some potential adjustments to that. And then getting very clear about when those cameras are going to be utilized and when they won't be, because we do anticipate that we will eventually come around to that being available in the school in some form. But I think conceptually, we're all in agreement that that would only be when a school resource officer was engaged in a law enforcement action at the school. So most of the time, they would be off at schools. But we're still working through all the details of what that would look like. Coming to written agreements, MOU between ourselves and the police department about how that would go, and then doing some robust communication out to the school community about what that looks like, making sure our students are very informed, making sure our parents are informed, and our staff is very informed. So this is not going to happen quickly, but I wanted to make sure, because it was a conversation as we got into the tail end of the summer, that was going to happen. In fact, it had been said in certain circles that was happening. It hasn't yet. We are in ongoing communication. Our partnership with the police continues to be extremely strong and cooperative, and so we'll keep you updated as we move along, but I wanted to make sure you were aware. So, yeah, Lisa.
I would love to see us be able to have at the board level a conversation with the appropriate folks at the police department or the police commission or both about exactly how this will be implemented, and to potentially have a policy on the books that is our policy that governs how this will play out in our schools, that's distinct from whatever their law enforcement protocols are, just so we're really clear with what our parameters are around it.
That sounds good.
I can see there being value to it in some circumstances, but we also want to make sure that we're really clear where those
are.
lines are.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we talked about is like we, as in initial conversations, we'll never be able to have it so fine that every single instance doesn't have some type of judgment in it. But I think conceptually we can get to where we need to be. And I think having a school board policy makes plenty of sense. So.
All right. Let's move on to consideration and approval of employment. Zach?
So you have two folks who we introduced tonight to you. One is Todd Gurdett at the middle school, and the other is Emily Hartzell at the high school. Todd would be in a STEM position at the middle school, and Emily in a special ed position at the high. And these are actually ones that were completed. This is more notification. We had this marked, unfortunately, we had these marked as action, and really these notifications, because it was completed during the summer during the normal process for me. So my apologies for the mislabeling, but these are folks that are in our employ as we speak.
Glad to have them.
So.
Yeah, awesome.
And good, strong backgrounds, and we're lucky to have folks coming on.
All right. Thanks, Zach. All right, moving on to consideration and approval of Community Engagement Committee.
We should, do you want to, I mean, this is under Nancy's name. Do you want a table, or we can?
I think this is what we talked about in our goals meeting. And I think we could probably vote on it without her. I think we kind of all came up with it together, but that's how I'm remembering it. Anyways, it's to foster relationships in the community, to better inform the public of the activities of the school board. Would meet quarterly or as needed as activities are planned. And we also have it as a standing meeting on here. So I'll take a motion, and then maybe we can have some discussion on it.
Motion to approve?
You have a second?
Nope.
Second.
All right. Let's have any discussion?
Just to confirm my recall of this, the idea was we would put together this, establish this committee. The committee would establish their objectives or charges and bring those back to the board.
That's how I remember it, yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't there for the discussion of this committee, but one of the things that strikes me is that it feels a little one-directional. And I think one of the challenges we've heard from the community for a while is that they don't have a good channel of input for us. They have our emails, but that's not a very back and forth, an opportunity for back and forth discussion or in-person discussion. So I would love to see this committee consider ways that they can create, community conversations that are two directions in their nature, rather than just presentations or just disseminating information.
Yeah.
I wonder, because there's a kernel of an idea here that probably, I think the idea of having a committee, appointing a committee who then goes away and then creates its own charge, could be interesting, and maybe just establishing a temporary working group to go away, come up with what it thinks is the best, and it speaks to some of what Pip is talking about, and then come back, have the charge fully developed, and then appoint people based on that is another course of action you could take if you wanted to.
Yeah, it doesn't feel fully baked out anyways, to me either. I know that we had talked about like coffee with, or, coffee chats, or, I don't know, visits with the school board, with the community, but I don't know if that was fully baked out anyways. Lisa?
Yeah, I think we did discuss as a group the idea of definitely trying to have some of that be us going out to the schools and to the community, like maybe going back to attending PTA meetings that we used to do, or like looking for ways to maybe go to the farmers market or find our ways to get us to where people are instead of trying to drag them here late at night as part of it. And I also would love to see us maybe kick this around a little bit more before we approve it. And I think having a slightly clearer mandate from the board might make it easier for whoever ends up serving on it to at least come back with something that is more in line with what the majority of the board wants to see. And stipulating potentially how many members are going to be on it, I think, is something we've traditionally done when we form committees as well. So I don't know where that leaves us, but.
Okay. Nathan?
Just so I could see how this group would operate within the school district, could you see this at a open house? Like if this group was, not that it would be here on Thursday, but if this group was engaging with families at open house, if they were inviting ninth grade parents in the night that they come with their student to see like, is that where we could see this group maybe?
Could be.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Those ideas are things that we kicked around conceptually, and I think one of the larger problems still is not knowing always when are those events. Like, it's both knowing what's happening so that we can try to be present for it, and also making the effort once we do know to figure out amongst ourselves who can get there and really be available to people. But yeah, I don't know. I mean,
So the motion on the floor is to establish the committee. And I think what we want to do is go with working group.
So it sounds like.
So I can rescind the second.
Can rescind first.
There you go. And then make a motion to establish a working group for defining the parameters around a community engagement committee.
Second. I think we need to have folks.
Yes.
That's where I'm going. The discussion would be, is like, who?
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that PTAs across all the schools in the district have been talking about for a while. We used to, going back pre-COVID, have a district PTA meeting where everybody from all of the schools came together, and we had a much closer connection. Like we tried last year with the middle school to start bridging down to the elementary schools and coordinating with those PTAs and coordinating with the high school PTAs. And I think that doesn't have to be the only vehicle. But I think that really helps, because I think we lose people, as they go from building to building and get kind of siloed. So I don't know, like, what the objective of the committee is. Because it feels like it's part just get out into the community and just meet with people, be organized about the calendar, and have a better idea of what's happening.
Well, I think
And then it's part communications.
I think it's the point of the working group is to flesh out the specifics.
I think, sorry.
Genevieve?
From what I remember from the meeting was, it was about creating a voice for the community. So it placed us in the community, allowing the talking points to come to us instead of, us going to them instead of them coming to us at a full forum that we have right here, right now. It creates an opportunity for us to go to them in those instances, making us more public.
I think we should just, are there any volunteers to do this working committee?
I'm happy to.
And Nancy? And
Well, I
Lee?
know she wanted to.
Yeah, I think Nancy would love to be. I don't want to volunteer her for it, though.
Yeah.
But I know she'd be interested, for sure. Anybody, any
We
other
never
interest?
had, we never had a second on.
I did.
the motion.
Yeah,
You
there
did?
was a second.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm already doing all this with the PTAs, so I'd be happy to maybe like liaison with the PTAs, but I don't think it makes me sense for me to be doing that and then be on the committee. Like, I'm happy to help, but it feels
Circular.
I think we can pencil Nancy with
like, who's not here, Tish?
Nancy, Genevieve,
Genevieve.
Lisa, just for the working group, but not the committee?
I mean, if you need help, yeah, I'm happy to. I just don't want to like I don't know.
I think it's worth, if you guys could at least have one discussion and it's just like brainstorm, and maybe it's just a calendar of events that we should show up to, you know?
Well, this would go back to our how many years long effort to try to have a single district calendar, I think, Brian. Like,
For sure.
Yeah.
like if we just found out like maybe yesterday that the high school open house is Thursday, like having to be able to plan ahead to be able to go there and have a whole program
Yeah.
is difficult. And it's, you know, like those things are kind of part of what the challenge is.
For sure. Any other discussion? All right, well, there's a motion on the floor. Let's have a vote on the, what is it, what do we?
Working group.
To establish a
The working group with
to
the initial
create-
membership of Lisa, Genevieve, and
I don't think that was part of the original
That
motion.
was not the motion. The motion was to establish a working group to create parameters around the proposed committee.
Yep. All right, let's have a vote on that, and then we'll just see who's in the committee.
Yeah.
I.
Yeah, all in favor. I forget, everybody's here. All in favor. Aye.
Just trying to help you out.
Any opposed? All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm rusty at running a meeting. All right, and it sounds like Lisa, Genevieve, and then we'll asterisk Nancy into there. But yeah, I think just a discussion would be great. All right, then we're on to single readings. Pip?
All right, thank you. So, we have the policy that keeps coming back. Student gender identity and expression, you might remember from about a year ago. This one is back because there was a simple change made to the language that was recommended by legal counsel. Not in one of our committee meetings, but we did get word through Patty and discussion with our legal consultants that they recommended a simple elimination of one phrase, which is in line 48, the terms including parents. And then we decided to eliminate and other school personnel as well, because it didn't seem to make sense there anymore. So I will entertain a motion to pass this on it. It's come for a single reading because it's considered a unsubstantial change. But if anybody would like to see it come for a second reading, we can entertain that concept too. So is there a motion?
Motion to approve JBAB on one read.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion? Lisa?
I feel like I'll be the broken record on this, but I feel the need to once again point out that there is nothing in RSA that makes any reference to gender identity as it relates to parental notification requirements. So I therefore believe that any changes to this policy, which is specific to gender identity, are unnecessary and erode the rights of our LGBTQ plus students that we have worked very hard to protect. So I just want to go on record and say that.
What is the change? Or
The change specifically include, it's the
Including
phrase including
parents.
parents. And so the,
I see.
so what Lisa's referring to is the RSA that governed the suggested change from Wadley and Starr is, includes parental notification on issues that affect, you can read the whole thing
I
if you
can
want
read the
to,
whole
but it's.
thing. I mean, I think the
Yes, actually,
exact
would you
wording.
read the RSA to us, or at least the beginning?
So the portion of the RSA that this is, it's that same, it's like, what is it? It's 186 : something or other, but it's, it says that a school district may not adopt policies, procedures, or student support forms that prohibit school district personnel from answering questions from a parent about his or her student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being, sexuality, or a change in related services or monitoring, or that encourage or have the effect of encouraging a student to withhold from a parent such information. So there is no mention to gender identity in the RSA. So
And this policy speaks specifically
specifically
only
and
to gender.
only to gender identity. So I therefore object to modifying it.
Does that help your understanding?
Much, thank you.
Okay. Pat?
I just want to clarify what the legal guidance was and why it came about. It was not in regards to 186, it was in regards to the Parental Bill of Rights Act, which was RSA 189-B3. And letter E in that specifically calls out the right to obtain access. Oh, hold on. Let me go back to my email. To inquire of the school or school personnel and promptly receive truthful and complete disclosure regarding any and all matters related to the minor child unless the immediate answer cannot be provided when the initial request is made, in which case the answer shall be provided no later than 10 business days after the request. So it was legal counsel opinion from Wadley Star to remove that phrase that we removed out of line 48 because legal counsel says it is misleading based on the current status of the law.
Well, but
Thank you
this
for the
policy was drafted back in January before that passed.
Right, that's why, I think that's why we've seen it multiple times, because the first time it came to us under the previous RSA that Lisa just read, and
Okay.
now the second time was under the Parental Rights Act.
Which was just passed in June. It just came through in that whole pile in June. And so that's where this specifically gets called out about receiving promptly accurate, truthful, complete disclosure of any and all matters related to their minor child. That's included in the Parental Bill of Rights.
Anyone else? I will, from my own perspective, I agree with Lisa in terms of our intention. I actually don't know if you spoke about this or just said this in an email, but she made a very good point, which is that in our strategic plan, one of the very important goals that we had was under safety and wellness for our students was that each student have a trusted adult in their building that they feel comfortable going to with any issue that they might be facing or any aspect of their life or identity. And I think to change what we have in this policy, which was intended to protect those relationships, really does work in contrast, direct contrast to that strategic goal of ours. Okay, if there are no other comments, then we'll take a vote on the single reading. You did propose it as a single reading, right?
You can roll call on this one?
Yep, we can do a roll call. Hang on 1 second. Approve the change on line 48 to policy JBAB. Genevieve Beckstead Muskie.
Yes.
Nancy's out. Pip Clues.
No.
Brian French.
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
No.
Carrie Nolte.
No.
Lisa Rappaport.
No.
Failed.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I don't know what the fate of that one will be. But,
We'll get legal counsel on that.
all right.
Okay.
Guess the next one.
Physical examination of students, JLCA. There were a series of, I'm sorry, I should say that the nurses in our buildings have been reviewing their operations and our policies that
govern those operations. And they came to Patty with some concerns about this policy and another that we're going to look at. And they compared the NHSBA model policy and our existing policy, and they preferred the model policy here. So we have modified ours to mimic that policy. Patty, can you remind me if there were any,
So
was there anything we changed that wasn't in that model policy?
No, and the reason they were looking at this was because they were comparing, it was coming from athletics and things like that, and they were looking at other districts and what they had for this policy. And other districts had the wording for the model policy. Now, this is not a required by law policy, but we already had it on the books, and it was not robust enough for the nurses for what they were doing and what the functions that they needed to do. So they preferred the extensive explanation that was in the other district's policy, which ended up being the model policy.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I realized we didn't take an initial, we didn't request a motion. Is there a motion to pass this policy?
Motion to pass the policy. JLCA.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so now I'll open it up for discussion. And I believe, I'll just say, I think the only substantive difference between our policy and this one was that we had previously required physical examinations for members of the marching band, but that was not included in the NHSBA policy. We got into a bit of a discussion about that in terms of what that sort of might precipitate if we did require physical examinations for people in the marching band, because any extracurricular, it could be argued that anyone participating in extracurriculars might need to have an examination, but we do in fact have participation releases that people sign to participate in those things that we feel covers that the eligibility in terms of their physical capacity. Lisa.
So I think my only question about this is whether there are any things that we would be able to do to be inclusive for kids who maybe don't have the ability to get a physical every year or document it, because that very much falls to families to make a decision to do physicals, especially as kids get older. So, I mean, I assume that our nurses have dealt with this before, but I just want to make sure that we're not in any way causing an issue for those kids.
There is a suggestion that the school can set up physicals on site for students to participate in. I don't know by procedure if that's something we do regularly, but maybe that's something we could.
And I think that that's,
request.
again, because the policy was lacking anything that would have supported that, I think that there was hesitance to move on that.
Okay.
Relatedly, I questioned why it says a single qualified health care provider. Is that their relationship status?
I actually caught that in my last review of it, and I forgot to say that. Thank you for noticing that. I think it should perhaps say an individual or something else.
And then to be a real pain, the legal term for nurse practitioner in New Hampshire is advanced practice registered nurse. So just like flip the P forward. But that's probably all over all our policies. I don't know. I'm like a little split on this. There's not a lot of evidence for annual well visits as far as like I'm curious what the nurse's opinion is on what are they trying to make sure that kids have access to health care? Are they thinking that there's a preventative measure? Like, are they thinking it prevents infectious disease risk? Like, what's the issue?
I think, I mean, as I understood it, it seemed to be around this participation in athletics. Like, it was making sure they were fit, essentially, and safe.
There was a fitness and safety concern
But
there.
this is covering every kid.
Is it?
No, it's only
says
covering
each-
kids who.
It's first school entry before middle school and again in high school. Wouldn't that be all of them?
You can't go through tryouts without submitting a physical.
Oh, no, that I understand. I'm just looking at the way this is worded. It doesn't say that it's just for sports.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. The participation
Oh,
on
is
that a
athletic
material
teams is
change?
I'm
always
getting very confused
Section
in this. Like all this.
But is that, I hear what you're saying, Lisa, but is that a material change against the existing policy that we have? Well,
Yeah,
I mean, but
no, I
if
know.
what we're talking about is the change that the nurses are asking about around, you know what I mean?
I do.
Current policy says that each child must have a complete physical exam within 1 year preceding first entry. Board recommends they also be completed before middle and high school again.
So I wouldn't, I mean, my take is I wouldn't block amending existing policies based on, I think that would be a separate action against like removing the policy.
And I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just
Is this referring to like everything?
asking the question since it's before us.
It's my opinion based on the amount of discussion that we have. And actually, I see some errors that weren't corrected from our previous discussion at the committee level. So I think this policy may need to go back to the committee for a little bit of revision.
So who, was it my motion to pass on single read? Mm-hmm. So I'll take that back and make a motion to pass first reading.
Well, actually, no, it was Lisa's.
Oh, it's Lisa.
Oh, then I'll do what he said.
There you go.
Seconded.
Okay. So can we make a motion to pass on, I don't know if this goes the agenda rules. Can we pass on first, or pass the first reading of this? And
We just send this back.
we just send it back?
I think we should just send it back.
So I would love an invitation to join the policy committee expressly. So I guess a couple things. Whatever the nurses need, I would love more clarity on. I think what's happening now is that the majority of us are going to an urgent care center that's never seen our child before, that does a quick 10-minute screening and signs a form, and there's no evidence that that is helpful. So that doesn't protect the students, the fellow students, this just feels like an extra barrier that doesn't have a lot of evidence, but I have no idea what the nurses' opinions are on wanting this.
And I'm concerned about the cost to families.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the urgent cares do free ones because they know it's a marketing scheme to get folks in for a physical, but it's also time and transportation. So I don't know. I would like, if this isn't required by law, I would like to know the problem we're solving with it.
Well, and we do have one on the books already, so it's not, even if it is required,
It's not required.
Yeah. So I think it would be great. We usually do run these medical ones by you, and we didn't do that, so I'm sorry. But I think, no, but it's very helpful. So, yeah, I think we should bring it back to the committee and perhaps have one of the nurse representatives come in and talk to us about the specifics, if we could.
Sounds great.
Sounds good.
All right. So
Next one.
we will, what happens to that motion?
I think we removed it and we just kind of deferred.
Gone.
Okay, go on.
Let's pick up the pace on this last one.
Oh, no.
We got a bunch left.
Oh, okay. Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act.
Wait, nope.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I skip something?
Oh.
I think we skipped, didn't we?
Oh, JRA.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Family Educational Rights Privacy Act.
We were going so fast, Byron, and you just slowed it down there.
He's just trying to get in the way. Okay, so again, this was one with very minimal recommended changes. On line 78, I'm sorry, let me take a motion first.
Motion to approve on single reading?
Yes.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. And on line 78, this was another one that I believe was requested by the nurses.
Yep.
That we add the term designated volunteers to that line, because we have people in the buildings who fall under that category, who work regularly, they don't work in the building, they volunteer in the buildings. And the nurses felt it was important for them to have access to information about whether kids might have allergies or need the use of emergency EpiPens or.
And just to clarify, the nurses had questions about whether or not volunteers. So if you're a volunteer and you're doing track, do you as a volunteer have the ability to provide an EpiPen? So that went to legal counsel. Legal said by adding in the phrase "or designated volunteers" to school officials with a legitimate educational interest, if you have a volunteer on the sidelines who's doing track, you can say to them, here's the EpiPen. If something happens to Jill, this is what you need to do. And that would be the only bit of information that they would have, because as a volunteer, they would be there to provide that medical intervention if something happened.
I thought it wasn't to provide medical intervention. I thought it was to be aware of the medical issue. in
You're
this
right.
one.
It is the
Right.
disclosure of the student records and
Yeah.
information
And
to
if,
that
and if
person.
they needed to,
Right.
That would be
do
the
that,
reason
yes.
that they were.
But it's also just like when you're chaperoning field trips as a volunteer,
Exactly.
that happens all the
Yes.
time. And if you have a kid with asthma, like say,
Yep.
I had one of those that had an asthma attack at the top of Mount Major, but
Okay, any questions about that?
Let's approve it.
All right, all those in favor of approving this one on a single
Aye.
read? Aye.
okay.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Wow, nice work, everybody.
Move on to
Okay, now we
first
have
reading
a few
policies.
more policies for first reading. Okay, career exploration. So under the 306 rules, please remind me what
The 306
Name
rules were
of those is.
revised and reapproved back in December, and what they basically are the minimum standards for public school approval. So the state changed what the minimum standards are, and as a result, there are cascading impacts on multiple policies that will probably be coming through this chamber and other meetings that we have until February, because there were so many that they hit, and these are a few of the ones that are sort of pinged because of those changes.
Thank you.
Motion to approve,
Thank you. That's what it is.
IKFG, for first reading.
Say second, Byron?
I did, I got
Okay,
it.
thank you. So in this one, the reason for this policy is that we have always done career exploration in the upper grades, but this is requires that we begin that in the early grades. So there are different age-appropriate ways to explore careers that are listed out here. And the only change we made to the sample policy was to group our grades by our buildings.
So,
I see.
sorry, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So where that's broken out in elementary, middle school, and high school, should they be in red to identify the modification to this, or is this brand new?
Didn't exist.
Brand new.
It is brand new to us,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not really a modification because those sorts of things you just fill in based on
Yeah,
how your district is set up.
modification. Yeah. Okay.
And I think overall, it seems like a good thing. I'm just curious if there does not seem to be other state legislation currently that dictates like the learning objectives for our students. Is this sort of new, or is there something comparable that we don't have?
So can you give me a little bit more about what you're thinking of?
So it's getting into curriculum. Like we have requirements that they have to have whatever, English and math or some certain things for graduation. But not the explicit objectives or teaching learning activities where this does.
What this is saying, and to be clear, this is already happening in our buildings across the district, but this is just pointing out things that should be occurring, examples of things that should be occurring that would hit career exploration. Because career exploration is not a subject. You're not going to have explicit standards and objectives to hit, but there have to be opportunities presented to students at all these grade levels so that they don't get to high school and they don't know what they want to be when they grow up, because they have never been exposed to a lot of these different ideas. And there are other policies that are going to be coming that have sort of related topics to this, but nothing's going to be very specific in policy from those 306s like that for this.
And it's worth pointing out that in line 9, it does say examples of exploration
Okay,
methodologies.
yeah.
So these are not required methodologies. They're just.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my concern, I think everything here looks great. Like, this all sounds lovely. It's just more the concern about like a creep of learning objectives being dictated by state legislature or city council or whoever is not that body around, topics that might be more contentious, like, creationism or evolution, whatever, things like that coming down. But it doesn't sound like you have any concern about this. Great.
Your point is well taken, though, for future. Anybody else? Lisa?
I think piggybacking off of what Carrie said, I feel like I would just go with less is more on this. So anything we don't have to like legally include under RSA, I wouldn't want to necessarily codify that we're going to teach this exact thing. I like the examples in terms of helping people understand what conceptually it might be about, but I also worry about people looking at this and feeling locked in to what they have to present to kids in the classroom. Mm-hmm. Do we need to have those examples, or was it just that we have to have a policy that says that we're committed to career exploration K-12?
The sample policy, which you've got linked in your agenda, outlines what NHSBA recommends, because that's what lines up with the new rule. Mm-hmm. And it covers the grade levels that were not previously covered.
Okay. Because NHSBA often makes an effort to expand upon RSA to give districts suggestions for how to draft policy. And I'm just trying to understand if the model policy was like lifted directly from what we're required to say, or if it was more of a, you could go in this direction. I apologize, I didn't have time to look this one up.
Maybe we can look into that more before the second reading.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't have the answer on that either. Okay, anyone else? All right, then we will take a vote on IKF for the first, IKFG, sorry, for the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes first reading.
Last one.
Two more.
No, two more.
Oh,
So
two
close,
more.
though.
Good luck.
Okay.
Turn the page.
I'm rushing it.
Don't mind. Okay, supervision of students.
Sorry. Motion to approve JLIA supervision of students first reading.
Second.
Thank you. I thought you were saying second reading. Okay, this is another that was impacted by the 306 minimum standards, and it doesn't appear to be highlighted in here, but as I recall, the only change was to further refine the definition of school property, mm-hmm. which includes the list that you see there on lines 8 through 10, and Patty, was there something else that I'm forgetting?
It used to be recommended, now this is required because this is part of the 306s, so it just talks about making sure that there's supervision, and in consulting with Brian about our insurance policy, we are covered morning, noon, and night on playgrounds and buildings, like we are covered.
Great.
So
We did have the conversation about what happens after hours when nobody is there to supervise.
Yep.
And
playgrounds and yep.
Playgrounds are utilized quite frequently, but it sounds like we're covered for that. So are there any questions on this policy? Okay, we'll take a vote then. All those in favor of approving JLIA for first reading?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, excellent. That one passes.
Last one.
Oh, now we're really at the last one.
So, point of order? Let's go with that. So for this one, which is JLP, I looked back. I think this is the one, right, Pip? I looked back to the minutes we had from July, and the, was it JLP?
Yep.
Sorry. The minutes we have from July say that the changes recommended by Wadley and consequently the committee to JBAB will bring us into line with the law, and so we don't need JLP.
No,
That was
not that
my
we-
understanding of it,
It was.
and I wrote those minutes.
Okay.
That was my understanding at the time. I've since inquired about that because I was confused about
Okay.
why it was on the agenda.
Okay.
And it sounds like others took from that meeting a different understanding. So maybe we have to figure that out before we attend to it on the agenda, because based on the recommendation in the minutes from the committee, it was not recommended for approval.
So
The committee did vote this, not to approve this, or not to recommend this policy several months ago.
Yeah.
So it didn't come forward, but then we had another discussion about it. I personally misunderstood that discussion and thought
That was
that
my
our
underst-
change to
yeah.
our proposed change to JBAB would take the place of needing to have this policy.
That was my understanding as well.
But Patty, do you want to say what your understanding
So,
is?
again, Wadley Star, once we made the change that did not pass with JBAB, JLP, which would be required, would be in alignment with the change to JBAB. So if JBAB passed, JLP, which is required, would be in alignment with what we now are saying in JBAB. JBAB is not a policy that's recommended by New Hampshire School Board Association any longer because of all of these different laws that have been in Concord. So what the recommendation was, if you make this change to JBAB, then you can pass JLP, and both of them will be in harmony with each other.
But as a committee, we agreed not to pass JLP previously.
Because we could not come to terms with the wording of JBAB because we were waiting for Concord to finish its deliberation.
Okay, I didn't think that was the reason we voted not to approve it, but perhaps this needs to go back to the committee,
We can go back.
because it seems like we're split on whether or not to recommend it.
Also, we didn't pass the update to JBAB.
That's the other, yeah.
We also did not do that.
Is there a motion on the table still?
No.
This one? Okay.
There's not yet a motion.
Or is it point of order?
Is everyone satisfied with that solution to bring it back to the committee? Okay, then we will do that. Thank you.
All right. All right, I think we're done with the policies. It's great. And then in your packet, you have the committee updates, policy committee minutes from August 27th. You also have the superintendent evaluation committee minutes, August 22nd. And I will reopen the public comment.
Oh, Julie. You waited this long.
So, Julie Gallant, 10 Fletcher Street. This is a completely unrelated topic from what I was speaking about earlier, but I do have to speak publicly about this because I know there was a huge changeover in the buses this year with who is doing the routes. And they're using AI software, and it's horrible. And it's creating unsafe bus stops for children, and it has changed my P4 bus route significantly. I think, Brian, you went and did the bus route. That's what Lynn said. You had a meeting with the bus company. I still have not seen any changes. So I don't know what's happening with that, but I have done everything that I can on my end, including, that's why I stayed here until now. But unsafe bus stops, P4 needs to be rerouted. It is just very different than last year, and I'm not very happy or thrilled or pleased, and I know that you aren't either, and I just don't know if there's any changes that are coming, but there's many parents that are very upset about the bus route being changed specifically for my neighborhood. So thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, no one else for public comment? I'll close public comment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thanks everyone.